Yes, that's right, I bought my dream car. Hi, I'm Brandon, and this is my 2004 Dodge Viper SRT10. You might recognize this car as the Zaid Comics Viper that we use in the Magic Cop trailer or in some of our videos on our sister YouTube channel, Zaid Comics, for our car reviews or our comic book reviews or even our updates about the comic book projects that we're working on. If you'd like to see more of that channel, you can go to the link in the description below, and it'll take you to our sister channel, Zaid Comics. I bought this car on August 1st of 2018 and fulfilled a lifelong goal of mine to own a Dodge Viper, especially how cool it was that I was able to buy this car right before my 30th birthday. So a little bit of backstory about my love for the Dodge Viper. Ever since I was a little kid, back in the early 90s, we went to the Chicago Auto Show where they had debuted the Dodge Viper. And so they showed off the first RT10 version of the Dodge Viper. And apparently I was enthralled with it ever since the very beginning. I recall as a young boy, just collecting little Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels cars, going out and drawing pictures of the Viper. I was always super excited when they had it in a video game, you know, Forza, Need for Speed, Project Gotham Racing. I loved playing as the Dodge Viper in the game. Twisted Metal 3 is my favorite character, and ever since then, the Dodge Viper has been a huge part of my life. Always been my dream car. I had my eyes set on the Dodge Viper GTS. I even had a poster of it in my room. It was the white GTS with the blue stripes. I'm sure you guys have seen it all over the place. They used to sell them at the school book fairs, so I had picked one up, of course. And I had the model that I painted black with silver stripes because even in my 8th grade graduating yearbook, I had said that I wanted to own a Dodge Viper with 4 turbos in it and 2 superchargers because I was a super cool kid back then and I didn't know what I was talking about cars, but I knew that I loved the Viper and one day I was gonna have one. In 2003, I remembered seeing on the cover of DuPont Registry this car, but it was in a dark metallic red, and I hated it. Couldn't see. But at the time, I was a freshman in high school, so what did I know, right? And so in high school, obviously, you know, you grow and you mature, and then as video games came out and more of this car seeped its way into my life, playing it in video games and seeing it in magazines and pop culture and, you know, really seeing it from many different angles and finally seeing it in black, it kind of changed my perception about this car. And over time, this became the car that I really desired. My father and I, we used to go to car dealerships, and if they had a Viper out there, of course, we had to go test drive it. So one time there was a car dealership not too far from my house. They had a yellow RT10. It wasn't in the best condition, but it had the canvas toupe roof on it and the little Jeep vinyl windows and stuff. And you know, that's part of the charm of the original car, but driving that around, it seemed to me unfinished. And eventually we got a chance to drive around this version of the car, the Generation 3 Viper, as this one is known as. And when finally I was able to drive this car has the rawness and the visceral nature of what the Viper means to me, but with the comforts of driving a regular car. This car does seem more finished. It seems like a cleaner fully cooked version of what the Viper should be. Definitely to me, that means a lot when having a car. I believe that this car is one of the most beautiful cars ever designed. It's so sleek, it's so muscly, it's just a super sexy car. So the Viper has always been my dream car because of the impact that it has had on my life. I've always been a very big fan of cars in general, especially the muscle cars. And so what better way than to have a small super light car with a massively huge engine in it to perfectly make the ultimate muscle car. And that's basically what this car is to me. It is the last true muscle car, because anything after this where you start including traction control and stability control, but you strap this car weighing as little as it does into a 500 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque, massive 8.3 liter V10 engine onto the front. It is the truest form of muscle car that you could possibly do, convertible or not. Of course, this is not the fastest car. For the longest time, the Viper was the reigning king of production vehicles on racetracks. But to me, I love having the top down. I love being able to switch through the gears in the 6-speed manual transmission. And I love enjoying my car as I'm enjoying the world around me. And that really, really makes it a special thing to just sit in your car and drive and not have to worry about an entertainment console or stability control doing anything. You know, you're just you and this massive engine and the road, sitting in a beautiful car, and you get to drive wherever you want. And that is why this car really speaks to me so well. It's a beautiful shape. I have come to adore the angular lines of it. Sitting in the car, you feel like you're driving the Batmobile because of the way that the wheel wells sit and how long the hood is. It is just a special feeling. So on August 1st, 2018, I was fortunate to come across this Viper at a car dealership not too far from my house over here in the Chicagoland area. And I thought I would stop in to check it out, not knowing what was going to happen. And I meet the most awesome car salesman that there possibly could ever be. I wanted to buy it. He gave me the offer of a lifetime on this car, and I could not be happier. Now, of course, this car is not in 100% perfect condition. This car was driven. I bought it and it had 29,000 miles on it. And that's okay with me, because I'm gonna put 30,000 miles on this car myself. I'm probably gonna put 100,000 miles on this car. This car did come a little pimped out when I got it. It had probably the most dark tinted window tints that you could have on a car. It had some broken things on the door. I had to do some repairs. It has chrome gills on the inside. It had chrome rings around the exhaust pipes. It has chrome tips on it. I did leave those because those do kind of look pretty cool. And if you've noticed that they've replaced the black Viper emblems on the side and on the back with chrome versions of them. I left them on here because the black ones, while they are cool, I do like to see the Viper logo and font on there. I love the font. Also, it did have a very, very weirdly rigged up, non-functional version of a fuzz buster or a radar detector, which I did take off the car and sold on eBay for cool $100. We'll look at some of the repairs that I had to do in future videos, but all in all, the car is just beautiful, and I drive it as much as I can, of course. I put about 3,000 miles on this car since I bought it in 2018, and summer of 2020 is coming up now, so it's a fair bit of miles, but I'm definitely planning on driving it more. Hopefully the rain isn't going to be so bad as it's been like in the previous years. But I just absolutely love driving this car. I take this thing everywhere as much as I can. The clutch is super smooth. There's more power than you could ever need to have on the road, but it's all at the control of your foot. You know, you're not always spinning out the tires. You're not always gonna lose traction or, you know, break away and go swinging around a corner as you're trying to get on a highway. This car just has an amazing balance to it. I couldn't ask for anything more out of this vehicle. My trip to the office is generally about 12 to 15 minutes at about 40 miles an hour, and the Viper just sits. You throw it in fourth gear, you just hold it at about 1200 RPMs, and it does 40 miles an hour. It's not trying to fight you to go faster. It's not bogging down to go slow. It is really, it's a race car. It's a muscle car. It's an amazing piece of V10 machinery under the hood here, but at the same time, it is tamed. You can drive this car. I drive this car as much as I can. You could drive this car as a daily. Of course, the only problem you're gonna run into is the trunk is awfully small. It's about 2 buckets full of sand you could fit in there. It's not very large. You know, the hood takes up probably 40% of the car's length. Inside the cockpit here, you have just enough room for you and your passenger. I had Phil in here not too many minutes ago, and we have a tripod and our jackets and stuff. And there's not a lot of room in here. And when we start doing rallies and things, it is definitely going to be an interesting thing. That Mustang brings up a really excellent point. Sometimes cars can be very, very loud, which is really interesting because this car has a dual exhaust side pipes that are right next to your ear. You know, if you have the windows open, you could fully hear this car singing its V10 opera, but it's not outrageously crazy loud like some other vehicles. I know a lot of Viper guys and Viper clubs and forums and things like that. They like to change out their exhaust and they put straight pipes on here or anything like that. As far as I understand, this Viper has a OEM exhaust kit on it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And we don't need to bring attention to this car. This car gets enough looks as it does as we normally drive around, and screaming down the road is just going to bring unwanted attention. I think it has just enough loudness to the exhaust, and it's perfect the way that it is. This car is incredibly comfortable. I feel like everything is spaced out exactly the distance that it needs to be for an American. I am 6 foot 4 inches tall, about 200 pounds. And for me, this car is perfect. When I sit in it, even if the top is closed, my hair barely touches the ceiling. My feet have the perfect length. My knees are not rubbing up against the steering wheel. My arms are at good length so that I can rest both of my hands on the steering wheel as I drive. And the stick shift is a good distance from where my elbow needs to rest. So I can reach for it right off the steering wheel for my hand. It's at a perfect distance for me. You know, this is a car built for Americans. It's not built, you know, to satisfy any European market or any kind of like Asian market or anything like that. It is for tall Americans. I love cruising in this car. It's got an amazing amount of power. You could put it down a gear and really lay it in. But, you know, I'm not going to go too crazy as since I bought this car and so far I have not changed the tires. These tires are 12 years old, so I don't want to cause a problem with this car by shooting it off the road or anything like that. But the power is here if we want to put down some power. Apparently, due to the gear ratio, can do over 60 miles an hour in first gear, which I find absolutely hilarious. I think that being able to do your 0 to 60 time without having to shift into second is ridiculous. Of course, if you're taking off and let's say you go into second gear and you're on an on-ramp and you're going to give it some power to catch up to the traffic that's on the highway, you don't even need to go into third. By the time you go into third, you're already breaking the law, and you got to tone it down a little bit. Having this car in a convertible really changes the feeling to it. When you put up the top, it feels almost like a completely different car. The windshield is so short, especially where I am. A lot of times when I'm sitting in traffic, near a traffic light, you know, I have to look down to see if it's gonna be a green light or anything. But as a convertible, it really opens up the world to you. You get to hear the car in its raw nature. You get to experience the world and the wind blowing around you. You get baked by the sun. It's just so much fun. And when you're driving at night and you have the top down, the entire inside of this car is black. And so it feels like you're just driving through the night. You're not even looking at a car. You're just you driving around at night in this amazing automobile. You know, there's no distractions or anything like that. It's just such a cool dynamic that this vehicle has. The nice thing about this car is that the power, you can just power your way out into traffic. And then you immediately reach the speed limit, which you have to come down from. This really is the ultimate car for me. You know, I could, of course, desire to have a Koenigsegg or a McLaren. Of course, I would want those vehicles. But the issue there is that, could you really drive those cars every day? You know, a car that has a 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, you know, it's gonna be really difficult to just maintain, drive on the road. You're not gonna wanna put a lot of miles on this thing. You know, the car's $1 million. And this car has a really good value. It's so much fun to drive. It's so much more rare than, like, let's say a Corvette or a Porsche. And just, it is a machine. It is so much more than a car. It is a machine that you are just a part of. Yep. How's it going? This guy's trying to sell me seal coating for the driveway.